Episode 125, Social Media and Marriage, Part 2 of my interview with Meredith Boggs. Welcome to the First Year Married podcast, where we get real about building the marriage of your dreams. I'm marriage coach Kayla Levin, and I take newly married and engaged women from anxious and insecure to confident and connected through practical tips, real-life inspiration, and more than a little self-awareness along the way. Hi friends, welcome back. I got some great feedback about part 1 of this interview. So if you haven't had a chance to go back and listen, I really recommend it. Meredith is really a breath of fresh air. I feel like she had a lot of really interesting things to say. She's really interesting to listen to. I also just die for the Southern girl accent. I think she's got the most beautiful voice. So I love that. And I'm really excited to bring you part 2 of this interview. I think the most important part that we got into was discussing the compare and despair trap that people get into with social media, right? Where you see, and by the way, when I say social media, this does include WhatsApp. So we see the pictures and we see what people are up to and we see, the happy smiling faces. And of course, our brain just paints that as that is all that's going on in their relationship. And then we compare it to our real life outtakes as opposed to their highlight reel. It's not a pretty comparison. And I know that we all know it intellectually. It can be so easy to forget. It can be so easy to forget that when you're looking at all the pictures, and especially if you go online when you're already feeling kind of yucky, which unfortunately is something that a lot of people do, is when you're in a bad mood or in a bad place, and then you kind of go to veg out looking at, chats or feeds. It just feeds on that yucky feeling and kind of ends up making it worse, right? I'm happy that we got into that in this part of the episode. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and enjoy. I'm wondering, just thinking about, I do hear a lot from newlyweds about the compare and despair trap of,
yeah.
I see him taking her out here, or he gave her this present, right? Like, of course, it's so compelling. It's so much fun to share about your romantic life, and it's, but of course there can always be someone on the other side who's sort of, maybe they're struggling and then they see it and it's hard for them. I did hear one thing, I have to credit this to, there's a teacher in New Jersey, Devorah Kegel, and she taught me, when you want to brag about your husband, call your mother-in-law. And I thought that was the most amazing tip ever. I tell it to everyone.
Oh, I like that.
It's amazing. You just take a picture, you send it to her. Like, what an amazing guy you raised.
I love that.
It's a fabulous tip. But that isn't to say that I think, you can, I'm not trying to make a rule here that you should never do it. But that, I think, is pretty clear. And I, again, I do coach a lot on that of someone seeing something, and then now maybe it wasn't even something that she necessarily wanted in a husband, but she's got it, so like, why don't I get that looks fun. But I also wonder if social media has kind of raised the standard across the bar. Like, our houses, I think, are so much more curated and designed.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes.
Because you're seeing houses, plus you're seeing it with the filter. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like where
totally.
do you feel like you see that at all?
I feel like everything. The first real conversation that I remember having about this was when I was in college and Pinterest was like exploding. And my mom's a florist, and I went to a small private Christian school. And so the MO was kind of like, oh, you get engaged your junior year, you get married the week after graduation. And so by my junior and senior year, all of my friends were engaged and planning their weddings. And wow. I was home on break, and I don't remember what my mom and I were talking about, but she had a couple weddings coming up that she was doing flowers for. And I was talking about some of my friends that were getting married and just, all the wedding planning things. And she was just like, Pinterest has completely just like destroyed the wedding industry. She was like, these brides that are coming now, their perception, like they have these mood boards created, and they have these huge dreams and visions of what they want their day to look like. And then you quote them a price and they just fall out of their chair, and they're like, how do you expect me to spend, 20 grand on flowers. And she's like, well, this is what you want. And this is, she just said,
Right.
that's what Pinterest has done to her business and to the wedding industry as a whole. And that was the first time that I was really like, oh, wow, Pinterest is, really ravaging a lot of things in a lot of ways. But I think you're right too, in terms of relationships, people, especially with marriage, people look around, and I love what you said, that it's like you see something in your friend's husband that it's like you never even thought that you wanted that, or you never even really did. But then all of a sudden it's this thing of, well, she has something that I don't have. And then there's this jealousy, and then there's this comparison sort of trap that you fall into. And, it can get so ugly and so dark so fast. And like you said too, our homes are so much more curated now than they ever were. I mean, I think about my home growing up. It was it was great. It was comfortable. It was homey, but it was not a Pinterest perfect kind of
Right.
home. And I think we have done a huge disservice to ourselves and to everyone else, that we've now made that the standard. Because it's like everyone's home is essentially the home of an interior designer now, whereas before it was like that's what you see in magazines, or like these crazy weddings where people are spending like 100K, 200K, something like that, which is insane anyways. It's like that's then become normalized, and it's like, oh yeah, you have this and that and all the frills, all the bells and whistles. And we've totally normalized it because that's just what we're inundated with the content that we see. And you kind of have to stop, and you have to kind of zoom out and be like, wait a minute, this may be someone's life, but that's not my real life. That's not the general public's real life.
Yeah,
But
I think
it's
that's where Instagram is so tricky, because if I pick up Martha Stewart weddings and I see a $20,000 floral arrangement, I
mhm,
know I'm holding a magazine that's not gonna like
mhm,
be for me necessarily. But if I'm following an Instagrammer and like you said, I saw her make the cake for her sister's birthday, and I saw where she went out
mhm.
with her husband, and I've been there when she was sick and everything, then you feel like, oh, you have a sense of association. And then when she goes
Yes.
and spends so much money on flowers, then it's like, well, people like me do that, right? Like it's kind of
Yeah,
like getting in the back
yes.
door. So it can be sneaky.
It can. And I think I have found myself, this is probably the place that I fall into the most on Instagram. I look at people and I think, and some of it I think is what people post and what people project, this kind of like, oh, I do it all kind of thing. Which, first of all, I think that message is, one, a lie. Nobody does it all. And two, I think it's really detrimental. I've listened to like a couple interviews and just seen some things on TV, and it is so off-putting to me when people are like, how do you do it all? And people give these bogus answers of like, well, it just takes
I'm a
like a lot of
perfectionist.
organization. Right, like I'm just kind of a perfectionist, or I'm really organized, or I have a super supportive husband. It's like, all right, let's cut all that nonsense. Like nobody can do it all. If you don't have a village, like everyone has a village around them. And so don't try to act like you're self-made, like you can do this all by yourself. There is no shame in admitting. I mean, I tell people, I'm like, we don't have kids yet, but I pay someone to clean my house because with work and everything else, the last thing that I want to do is do it. And I don't want my husband and I to argue over it. So I pay a housekeeper to come once a month. I do not act like I do everything. I don't act like I do all the cooking. It's just one of those things that I think that's a huge disservice when we act like we do everything. But it's I, I think the trap that I fall into a lot is looking at influencers, different people on Instagram, and I think, oh, they do it all. And in reality, I mean, they may be projecting that, they may not, but in reality, they have one niche. They're a florist, or they're a photographer, or they're a graphic designer, or they're this or that. And so that's what you're seeing the highlight reel of. Maybe they're a stay-at-home mom and they make all their baby food and they homeschool and they do all this. And it's like, so that's what you're seeing. But the other side that you're not seeing is that, you know, they're not, wearing all the latest trends from New York Fashion Week, or, they're not like writing on their blog and putting out podcasts. It's like they're doing their one thing, kind of like I'm over here doing my one thing, but there's just this perception that all these other people around us are doing it all, and they've got the perfect home and the perfect marriage and the children and the career and everything. And I think that is a slippery slope to fall into.
Right.
And you have to stop and be like, oh, wait, no, that's not real. Nobody does it all.
Yeah, 100%. So when you talk about the other half, like, is it mostly about awareness, or is there a way to center ourselves more into, I mean, ideally it's not even the other half, right? It's like the other 90%. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do we, I don't know, do you have suggestions also for that? Or how do people, yeah, just how do people feel more grounded in their real life, other than
Yeah.
having limits on phone usage?
Yeah. I actually, I've created this little like 6 steps to stopping the scroll, and I'll send it to you so you can link to it in the show notes if you want to.
Amazing.
But it's, I mean, it's just 6 really simple steps that don't take long at all. And the first one we've kind of already touched on, but it's just stopping. It's physically like a change of scenery, leaving your phone in the other room, getting unstuck from it. And then it goes through a few other steps, but a lot of it I think is, it's nothing crazy, it's nothing profound, but it's just simple steps of like, you start by, I'm trying to think through the acronym right now, because the acronym is scroll, and I can't tell you off the top of my head. My pregnancy brain is in full fledged right now, and I can't remember anything these days. But
It's good because
the
now I
S is
have to go get the link.
right now you have to, because I can't even remember and tell you what it is. But as the first S is for stop, I can't even tell you what the T is for. But there's a piece of redirecting your thoughts. So it's like, are you going into a ditch right now, like comparing your life, thinking, oh, this person has it, so perfectly? What kind of lies, what kind of narratives are you internalizing, and redirecting all of those to truth, which I think is something that everyone's having to do every day. But this is just another area that you stop and you bring cognizance to that, and you redirect. And then, I think some of it, kind of, again, like we've already touched on, is it's simple practices of gratitude, stopping in the middle of your day or starting in the morning and writing down 3 things that you're thankful for. Or if you're finding yourself really stuck in a ditch of comparison, if it's about your home, walk around your house and find 3 things that you're thankful for. Or if you're looking at, your friend's picture of her date night and you're thinking, oh, her husband's so great, think about 3 things that you're grateful for your husband. Write them down, or even better, like write him a little note telling him what you're grateful for. And I think it can never be overstated, the wild impact that gratitude has on re just redirecting our minds and restructuring our heart. So anyways,
I love
I
that.
I wish that I could remember all the 6 pieces, but
You're more than
that's pregnancy
excused.
brain for you. So but yeah, but I'll send you that, so if you want to link to it,
Fabulous.
they can
And
they
I
can look
also
at
want to
it.
just add, because I'm a coach, so I just have to say this, I can't hold myself back, but that
Yeah.
it's really helpful to stop and notice what drove you into the scroll in the first place. Like, was
Mhm.
there a negative emotion you were trying to get away from? It might have
Yes.
been something as simple as boredom, like life is
Yes.
kind of boring, or I have nothing to look forward to today, something like that. Because we do go for that dopamine hit, or we go for that. It's like uncomfortable, and this
Yes.
is this is this is the equivalent of eating a bunch of Oreos, essentially, for your
Yeah.
brain, right? It just perks up
Yes.
right away. But the long-term effect is that we never actually deal with the thing that caused us to feel uncomfortable in the
Yes.
first place. So
Yeah.
we need that discomfort. We need it because it's going to propel us to take a moment to look into our life. And it might be, like, very definitely might be, a person realizes, I do want to focus more on gratitude, or I do need more
Mhm.
silence or more prayer in my life. Like, that might be the realization. Or it might be that
Yeah.
there's this bigger thing in my life that I need to work on.
Yeah.
There's this dream that I'm not pursuing, and
Yes.
so I love that you have like these really clear cut practical tools when you're already in it, because sometimes that's like, that's all you can handle at the moment. It's
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
just tell me
Yeah.
to turn out, like, to walk into a different room is so simple and clear, and it's really powerful because of that. But then after the fact,
Mhm.
I want to encourage everyone to also go back and be like, okay, was that just habit, or was there something I was sort of resisting or avoiding in that moment?
Yes. Well, and it's like you said with the Oreos too, that it's like you reach for something in that moment, but it never actually satisfies you. And then you find yourself still hungry and never fully satisfied. And it's like that dopamine hit that it's like, yeah, maybe you are just bored, or, maybe you are feeling really sad or lonely, whatever it is. And you click open your app, you see the red flash, the hearts, the whatever, and you get that instant dopamine hit. And then it's so transient and it's gone, and you're back at square one again. So yes, I'm a huge proponent of personal work. Get a therapist, get a coach, get somebody who is kind of an external source, because all of our brains are crazy and we just we need someone else to look into that and speak into that. And I think you're right. I think it's so important to, yeah, get out of it in the moment, but then reflect on it and figure out what it was that took you there in the first place.
Amazing. For this is I was just like such a I feel like a perfect sort of like launching point. So many good things for people to think about to sort of evaluate their own usage. A lot of really practical tools. What would you like for people who want to follow you, who want to learn more from you? Where should they go?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's at Meredith W. Boggs, or my website is meredithwboggs.com. That's where I'm mostly at. I'm also on Facebook, but you can find me either way through there. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, and I have the one guru question for everybody, which you
Oh,
listen to
yeah.
the episode, so you already know what it is. If you could, what advice would you give to newlywed Meredith?
Oh, man. I would. Hmm. I think I would have told her that who she was enough, and that she didn't have to do all the things to try to be a good wife. She didn't have to, you know, try to work so hard to grow in her career, have the perfect home. I think I would have just told her that her husband loved her for who she was, and she didn't have to keep doing anything. So,
I
and
just
I
got
feel like, but
chills. That was so
I feel
perfect.
like that, what's funny is I, this is probably like 2 years after we had been married, but my husband and I both worked night shift for a little bit. And so he was working one night and I was at home, and I was just up in the middle of the night. And so for whatever reason, I went back and I was watching all the raw footage from our wedding, and we'd seen our highlight video and all this stuff, but I was just clicking through these videos, and it was like different. It was like when the videographer talked to different friends and family members, and like I said, it's probably a year and a half, 2 years in. So but there was this one video where they had pulled my mom aside, and they were asking her, like, what do you have to say, like, it's your daughter's wedding day, whatever. And she literally said that, she said, who you are is enough. And I was like weeping, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just spent the last year learning this. And it was just, but I loved it. It meant so much. And now when people ask that, I'm like, yeah, just who you are already is enough. That's why they're marrying you in the first place. They love you even if you don't ever do anything, if you don't ever do anything at all. So yeah, I hope that will speak to someone out there who might be in the throes of that, or who's coming up on engagement or marriage, and that'll really take root. So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a really, really powerful message. And I think really fabulous, especially in the context of being a newlywed. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously it's all the time, but in this particular context, even more
Oh
so.
yeah. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It was such a
Thanks
nice
for having me. This was
interview.
this was so great.
Okay, my friends, that's the rest of the interview. I just want to say before we go that I keep forgetting to go on iTunes and look at the reviews, and sometimes I just remember, and it's like so serendipitous and nice to just go and check them out. And you guys have been leaving some really gorgeous, amazing, and meaningful reviews. And I just want to say thank you so, so much. It really is like such a chizik booster for me to go on there and to see that, this is improving your commute, that you just got married and you're using this material. You've been married for 15 years and you're using this material. So I just love all the different people who are using it. I'm so grateful to you for leaving a review. It just means a lot to me and really energizes me to keep going. So if you haven't left a review yet and you'd like to, I would love to read it. I'll make sure to go check on there the next couple of weeks for people who've heard this and who have left their review. And you could do that really easily, on any podcast player. Just rate and review the podcast. And I hope you love it, and I hope you leave a review. Thank you so much. Have an amazing week. Bye-bye.